Yeah, the camera takes off a couple feet, they say. Thank you for those who have joined a little early. We are going to get kicked off here in just a minute, giving others the ability to trickle in here. What I'd ask is for those who are joining us, if you don't mind just putting into the chat what degree you are seeking and what university. So bachelor's degree, UCF, master's degree, USF, whatever it may be. If you just don't mind putting that into the chat, just so we know kind of who our audience is. And then, like I said, we'll begin in just a minute. For those who just joined, we're going to get kicked off here in just a couple seconds. The rest of the group is just putting into the chat their degree that they're seeking, or in the middle of the process of completing, and then their university. So, MSW from FSU, ESW from UCF, whatever that may be. Um, while you all are doing that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Philip Cerrone. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Elite DNA. I am actually the first employee who was hired 11 and a half years ago with the organization, and the second employee ever hired, depending on who you ask, is also helping MC today. That's Christina Johansson. I thank you in advance, Christina, uh, for running this. Um, Today, we're going to talk about really the day in the life of a therapist and try to run through as much with our three panelists as we can. We will leave 15 minutes at the end for question and answer. So feel free if you have a question as it comes up, put it in the chat because you don't want to lose track of that. So, quick overview for those of you who don't know who we are, and I see a lot of interns of ours currently. Um, Among the attendees. Elite DNA, the name is a little confusing. The DNA is actually an acronym for the owner's three kids, Dylan, Noah, and Asher. So we're a behavioral health company here based out of Florida. Our headquarters is in Fort Myers, but we have 36 locations across the state, and we'll talk with our panelists about which location that they mostly work out of. We are a behavioral health provider, meaning that our main focus, our bread and butter, is therapy services and psychiatry services. So that's what we do the most of. We work with all patients and populations, ranging from 6-year-olds to 106, Medicaid to Medicare to commercial insurance. And really, what makes this company super special is really the culture that the owner and founder, who's also a licensed therapist, her name is Lizzie, has really set when she started the company. And what keeps it, I think, being a fantastic company is the providers, three of which you'll talk to this afternoon, who really do just an incredible job of not only giving fantastic patient care, but also being, really being themselves in the way that they approach their patient care. So we'll go quickly through our three panelists, and then we'll go through some questions. And again, we'll have question and answer at the end. So I will start with ladies first. If you want to go, Deja, do you mind just giving an overview of who you are, your degree, what location you work at, and any kind of specialty populations that you work with?
Thank you, Phil. Hello, everybody. My name is Deja. Deja Gidry. I'm currently in the Ruskin office. My degree is in marriage and family therapy. I've been with Elite almost a year. And my population that I've been focusing more on is the teen population. So that's one of my biggest populations that I serve, but I also work with adults and the older population as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Deja. Go, Andrea.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea and I am in the Venice office. My degree was in clinical mental health counseling from the University of North Florida, and I'm a registered mental health counseling intern right now. My population is a little bit all over, but I love it. So my youngest is 7 and my oldest is 92. And that has been great because I started working with Elite as a registered intern in September. So still trying to figure out why I feel passionate about and maybe what population I want to really focus in the future. And I also started with Elite in January of last year as a student intern while I was still in my master's degree.
Thank you. And Nicholas.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick. I work primarily out of the Jacksonville office. We actually have two offices in Jacksonville, one in Orange Park and one over near the beach. And I think there's a third one opening even further close to the beach. So we're expanding over here. My degree was in clinical mental health counseling, just like Andrea. We actually came out of the same graduating class. Thank you, Andrea. Um, and my specialty pops that I work with, I work also like Andrea. Very, very young to very, very old. My youngest is 6, my oldest is 72 right now. And in terms of specialty pop, I've been kind of trying to find my niche along the way. Where I find I'm hitting my stride is teens and adults with ADHD, specifically that have comorbid anxiety with that. I'm also starting to get my feet wet with some trauma work. I just finished a CC TP1 training, and I'm trying to get certified in other modalities like narrative exposure and things like that. So that's pretty much what I work with. A lot of students, a lot of kids. My caseload is pretty evenly split between adults and pediatric clients.
Thank you, Nicholas. And one thing we'll talk a little bit later, probably at the Q&A about some of these acronyms. If you have questions about what some of the acronyms mean, I know in that particular case, Nicholas was talking about a modality that he's training under. I think nobody does it better than the therapy world when it comes to acronyms: MHC, MSW, RMHCI, CBT, DBT, EMDR. I mean, so if you have questions about what any of that means, feel free to just put that to the chat. Let's go ahead and kick it off. I would love to know from each of you, and we'll start with Nicholas. Why did you go the therapy route? And we'll kind of start easy. We'll start from there. So why become a therapist?
Sure. So I actually got inspired to do therapy after, I kid you not, watching Dr. Phil. And then I found out what a terrible therapist he was. And I was like, oh, ouch. Okay. But no, after a while, I kind of wondered if therapy was a viable career for some reason because it's very undervalued in a lot of ways. So I went into college knowing that I wanted to work more with my brain than I did with my hands. I can't build anything, it falls apart immediately. So it really was just kind of that period of discovery. I took Psych 101 and I was like, okay, all right, maybe. It wasn't until one of my last semesters or my last years in undergrad, I took an elective class for Introduction to Counseling, and I fell in love with the profession. After that class, and after hearing a passionate therapist talk about a lifetime of work that he did, I even remember in graduate school telling people, like, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. Like, it is this and only this. I really wanted to help people. There was a time where I thought biomed, but then I saw one video of a surgery and almost lost my lunch. And I said, no, thank you. So a different helping profession was in line. So yeah, therapy just kind of always made sense. I've always been good at talking to people. People naturally open up sometimes when I don't want them to, but they do anyway. So I said, hey, if everyone's opening up, might as well start charging. No, it looked like very rewarding work. So I really wanted to engage in it and kind of engage that passion.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicholas. Andrea, and then we'll go Deja.
Yeah, so I'll share a little bit about me to answer that question. I grew up in Colombia and I love my country dearly, but I did see that mental health was one of those things that was really stigmatized. And I kind of, after that, I knew that I wanted to go into the medical field, more psychology related. And then when I came to the US, I was a student athlete. And I also saw how that population specifically stigmatized mental health as well. Maybe not so much the athletes, but more of the stakeholders. So that reinforced my desire to contribute to the field um, of sports, of course, but also continue working with my community, which was something that I loved doing back home and pretty much throughout my life. Same thing with Nick, like taking some classes in college, like I already knew that this was my calling, but that really confirmed it. And then my master's degree as well, I feel very privileged and lucky that I chose UNF's CMHC program because it was amazing. Like my professors inspired me every day to continue in this field that can be really challenging sometimes, especially as a grad student. There's a lot more challenges there on paid internships. It's heavy work, of course, heavy course load. But a combination of all those experiences and just really feeling passionate about what I do every day. Like, I think my internship really confirmed that because, as I said, it was hard, but I was loving what I was doing. Like, I was loving going to Elite every day for my internship, getting to know from like my mentors, my supervisors. So all of these experiences just really confirmed that this is the field for me. And even now, I'm still pretty confident that I can probably do this for the rest of my life. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me and why I chose therapy as a field.
Deja?
Can you guys hear me okay? I'm sorry, I was fixing my speaker, so I wanted to make sure. So same, just went to school. I was a good speaker with my friends. Everybody confided in me. I was the friend that everyone goes to. So naturally, in my bachelor's degree, I went into psychology, which I absolutely loved, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with that, if I'm being honest. I didn't know nothing about mental health. Again, the community I come from, we don't even talk about that. And so I ended up doing an interview for a job for a class project, and it was a nonprofit organization. And the owner was like, "Hey, I think you would be a good fit for this position." And so I tried it out. It was community-based services, going into homes, doing therapy, with underprivileged families and underprivileged kids. And I tried it out, and it just kind of fell in my lap, if that makes sense. It just worked out to where I was able to easily connect with families from similar communities that I came from. And so ever since I started that job, I never left. So I worked there for about 7 years doing community-based work. And so that is how I got into the mental health field.
Thank you. So a brief overview for those of you who are graduating, will be graduating soon. It looks like most everybody's in a master's program. Once you do graduate with your master's program, and every state is a little bit different, but generally they follow the same protocol, you would then apply for what's called in Florida, and every state has a different name for it, your registration. And that will be different whether you're a mental health counselor, social worker, or a marriage and family therapy. But no matter what, it will start with registered, your designation, and end with intern. So registered a mental health counselor intern, registered marriage and family therapy intern, or registered clinical social work intern. And that is your path towards licensure. So you would get those credentials from the state by having a qualified supervisor who's pretty much on paper saying that they're going to supervise you over the next 2+ years, working towards clinical hours towards your licensure. And at some point, you will need to take an exam to get licensed. So once you get registered, which is one of the first things you want to do once you graduate, you then can, and whether you then are looking for positions or you're looking for positions and getting registered, however you want to do it. Either way, you want to get registered so you can work towards your licensure. So I'd be interested to know, and I'll start with you, Deja, what specifically were you looking for in positions as you graduated with your master's degree? What was important for you?
Um, I probably would say the population that I was able to serve. Again, I've come from that community-based setting. So I wanted to make sure that I was making a difference in some kind of way, shape, or form, but also that I had the freedom to expand kind of what I already learned with being in the field. So I was looking for the freedom to start a group if I wanted to, or start with the older population since my base population was mostly kiddos. So I was definitely looking for the freedom to expand what I knew and dibble and dabble how I felt I needed to. And so I definitely found that in Elite when transitioning out of school into the work field, finding like my way of being able to expand was what I was really looking for, and not just being in the position of I just have to do therapy. So that's what I was looking for.
Thank you. Andrea, same question to you. What was important for you in applying for positions after your internship?
Yeah, a couple of factors. So I knew that I wanted to do some type of hybrid work. So I do 2 days remote and then 3 days in the office. And I really wanted to try that out, and I've really been enjoying it. So I'm glad that Elite offers that. Also, same thing with Deja. So populations that I could serve. It was really important to me that the place that the practice or the place that I was working for accepted insurance, more specifically Medicare, Medicaid, because there are populations that is really hard to access services most of the time. Um, so that was really important to me. Um, Additionally, supervision, as most of you probably know, supervision is really important in our field, and I wanted to make sure that that was something that was going to be incorporated in the model of my work and my everyday life, and that I didn't have to seek supervision outside of the company. And I am very lucky that I have an amazing supervisor. And that is, I will say, as an advice, find a good supervisor that you really connect with and that is going to be supportive, because it is so important, especially in your first year as a registered intern. Additionally, I honestly wanted to move out of Jacksonville too. I wanted to try another part of the US, of Florida. And Elite DNA was pretty much like, well, these are the offices that we're hiring in. So pretty much take your pick. And I came down here to Venice to visit, and I really loved it. So I'm glad that it was also the flexibility to choose a different place to relocate. Um, oh, and also a practice that will provide services to Spanish speaking clients as well.
Thank you, Andrea. And then same question to you, Nick. What was important for you in your first position out of your master's program?
Sure. So the most important thing to me was a felt sense of support. I did my practicum at a community-based agency, and I will say I felt very isolated there. I felt like if there was a crisis situation that I wouldn't be supported, I just have to kind of figure it out. And it makes for, not the best place to practice. After I transitioned to Elite DNA, I found the support honestly overwhelming. When my wife was about to give birth and I needed some way to make some extra money before that happened and before graduations, we opened up a position and I was able to do something to be able to make ends meet with Elite DNA's help. As Andrea was saying, having a great supervisor also helps. They were able to support me as I was dealing with the emotional fallout of everything that was happening, graduation, big life changes, things like that. Even, my student intern supervisor, because things were so tight, deadlines were so tight, money was so tight, he actually covered the registration fee for me to get my registered internship. So there was a lot of support there to try to help me succeed and want me to succeed. I feel through the beginning up till now, people in the company recognize my passion and they want to help further that passion as much as possible. I never feel like I'm alone. I never feel like I have to figure out things by myself. I can always tap someone in that has that experience and that wealth of knowledge, and not only help me resolve the situation, but actually teach me how to resolve those ruptures and those situations as they arise. So for me, it has always been like that felt sense of being supported was so important in deciding which agency I wanted to work with.
Awesome. And we'll stay with you, Nicholas. Tell me a little bit about a day in your life, right? I think we all have different visions of what a day in the life of a therapist is like. For me, it was watching Good Will Hunting growing up. But what is a day like for you? And not, diving into minute by minute, but how many clients do you have scheduled today? How many do you wind up seeing? What are you doing in your downtime? What are your cases like? Like generally, if you could spend maybe a minute, minute and a half, just kind of walking through what a day is like on average for you.
Sure. So I will first say I love all my clients. They're doing great things, and I'm very proud of them. I my caseload is pretty full right now. I work 8 hours a day, nine if you include lunch, and all 8 of those hours are booked up with patients. Average, I would say about 7 show up. Sometimes, things happen, they cancel last minute or they don't show up to appointments. And so usually within that hour, if I have it, if it's more, great. But if it's usually just that hour, I'm spending that time doing one of two things, either doing some sort of administrative task, like filling out notes, coordinating emails, collaborating with other staff, consulting on cases, things like that. Or I use that time very strategically for self-care. So I'll either walk outside the building and be among nature. I actually picked up an old hobby of taking like macro pictures of plant life and things like that. That's been very grounding. So kind of in those moments where I'm working with clients, make sure my focus is on them. In the moments where I'm not, deciding, is this an admin type of time or do I really need that self-care piece in this moment? The cases I work with they range from very basic to very complex. I have some cases of children struggling with, testing anxiety. I have other cases of people that have, complex trauma that they've been experiencing for 10 years. I've had patients that get better within, 5 or 6 sessions. I have patients that I've been seeing for almost, because I've already been working here almost a year, but I've had patients that I have seen ever since I was doing intakes as a student intern. So I really do get to see quite a variety of people. I will say for my younger clients, ages 8 and below, that's really fun because a lot of it is just playing games and talking. So just today we were playing, I was playing on my floor mat over there with some Hot Wheels, and I was designated to be the bad guy while he was being the superhero, and we were just playing with toys together. So those parts are really fun. I really enjoy my work that I do with kids.
Thank you, Nick. Andrea, same question to you.
Yeah, so work-life balance really important for me. So my mornings are pretty much same every day, working out, then heading to work, even if that's just from my office at home or the actual office here at Venice. Um, so I usually schedule 7 clients a day, and for the most part, the 7 show up or the 6 show up. If it's crazy times like spring break or Thanksgiving, Christmas, maybe I'll have a little less than that. But on average, I would say 7 to 6. Um, Same thing with Nick. A lot of times is playing games, which is always really fun. I'm very lucky that in our office, we have a couple of psych providers as well. So medical sales teams come over and they bring us lunch, and it's usually really good lunch. So I will say that's another perk of the job. I don't know if it's every office, but at least my office, it's amazing. And then once I leave, again, self-care is really important for me. So I try to do something fun a couple of times a week, maybe at least once a week. I'll go see sunset at the beach if the weather is nice enough, or just engage in my hobbies and self-care. So that's a little bit of what my days look like.
Thank you, Andrea. And then Deja, if you want to go through your day, you're also involved, Deja, in the AI pilot we got going on. Do you also want to weave that in as well and just talk about your experience working with AI?
Absolutely. Okay, so same as Andrea, I'm self-care first, always and forever. Live by it, breathe by it. So I'm up 4:30 working out, whether I'm working from home or I'm going into the office. But I too work out, get ready for my day, go to work. Typically, I'm scheduling 8 to 9 clients. So I'm even working on my lunch. But again, that's a choice that I've chosen to do. And so typically about 6 to 7 is typically what you see. They may have 1 or 2 cancellations throughout my schedule regularly. I am using the AI system that Phil kind of spoke about, which is MD Hub. And I think it has been a game changer for me personally because it gives me more time to spend with the clients. So in navigating that, you're asking permission from the clients to record them, and then it records the whole session, even the tools you're using in that session. And then it generates the note for you, even including the interventions that you use. And I literally utilize that for my note. And that has been saving me drastic time, if I'm being honest. So that has helped with seeing a full caseload of 8 to 10 clients if they all show. I also have the team group that I'm now running. And so in that, if I do have downtime between clients, I'm either creating PowerPoints, games, doing research to kind of implement into that team group that I have. So typically I don't have too much downtime, but if I do, it's probably an hour within my day. And I'm utilizing that, as Nick said, to do notes that I may need to catch up on or doing research or responding to emails. And then at 5 p.m. or if I'm finished at 6, that computer does close. And it does not see me again until the next day. So typically that is what my day kind of looks like.
Deja, just quickly on that, what
Mhm.
is the difference for you from having when you were manually doing the note to using the AI? How much time have you saved, do you think, per note?
Oh, probably 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, because typically a session is about 50 to 53 minutes for me. So we're utilizing that AI system. I have that if you're in session with a client, you can kind of type up notes as you're going, and kind of ending session as on the computer as you're actually in the session with the client. So it saves me a good 10 minutes to where I do have to go to the restroom or eat a snack or whatever the case may be. It saves me a 10-minute period before sessions, which you learn is very needed when you're seeing a caseload of 7 to 10 clients a day.
Thank you. I want to talk about, I think you all mentioned work-life balance, or I think what's important to note too is when we think about how we're growing our skills, right? You all are extremely busy. You talked about the amount of patients you're seeing. I'd be interested to know what courses or content you've been taking, completing recently, what those modalities are, just briefly, and why you're excited about it. So I'll kick it over to you, Deja. What are you learning right now as a therapist?
So I have signed up for the EMDR training, the art training. I've signed up for a couple of them. I have not attended them yet. So waiting for approval. But most of the modalities I use, I have mostly trauma clients, if I'm being honest. So most of my therapy comes from supportive therapy or CBT. Um, a lot of CBT, if I'm being honest. Shifting perspective is a lot that I've had to do in the last couple of weeks, because of the trauma that people have endured. So I used a lot of that in solution focus as well. All of the ones that we typically learn in our degree program, you kind of pick and choose from different modalities every day, but learning how to do that is very important. So I've been meeting with my supervisor about that and how to implement all of the things that we have learned in school to make sure that I'm meeting the client's needs.
Awesome. Did you sign up for the ART training by
I did.
chance? Okay, good. Yeah, that's gonna be a great one. Andrea, same question to you. What are you learning right now?
Yeah, so I recently completed the DBT training that Elite DNA offered, and that was great. It was really helpful. It was 2 different sessions, and it was 4 days total. I pretty much every day I use resources that I learned from that training, and I'm also lucky that my supervisor it has really extensive training in DBT. So it's always good to consult with her in supervision about different interventions that I'm using in therapy. I've also done a lot of, I guess, education on my own with IFS, which is internal family systems therapy, and I found really beneficial with my clients as well. I think I totally agree with Deja. We just kind of have to meet the client where they are and use different modalities when the need arises. So I would say that I use DBT IFS with adults the most, and then with the kids, CBT is really helpful. And I am looking into having another training in IFS, and I am also trained in Gottman therapy for couples, level 1 and 2. So that's a fun thing about the field. The learning never stops. And trainings are really expensive too. I don't know if you've found out already as students, but trainings are really expensive. So I'm really lucky that Elite DNA offers a really big variety of them, and it's really good quality training as well.
Awesome. Andrea, have you signed up for the EFT training by chance? Are you interested in that?
I have not, but I'll look into it.
Okay, yeah, we're doing an EFT training. I think that's in May at USF. It's gonna be a fantastic training. Just so you
Okay.
mentioned working a lot with families, so um, appreciate that. Nick, what are you learning right now?
Sure. So I have a weird way of going through my modalities. I'll just look at where it's not quite meeting all of my clients and see where I can expand it. So I started with rational emotive behavior therapy as my core modality, which has been very useful. If you haven't heard of it, it's like a close cousin to cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, After that, I found, well, you know what? It's not really a strengths-based approach. What's a good strengths-based approach? So I got into narrative therapy. And then I said, well, narrative therapy is good, but it doesn't really help with trauma cases. So then I did narrative exposure therapy. And I said, well, that's good too, but I feel like I could just use a little bit more in the trauma realm so I can know outside of this particular like modality, what else do I need to know about trauma? So that's when I got involved in forward-facing trauma therapy. And I did that CCPT1, which is Certified Clinical Trauma Professional training. So I found myself kind of slowly shifting more toward the trauma realm. And that's mostly because a lot of the patients that I started seeing that were presenting with things like ADHD and bipolar disorder actually had a lot of trauma symptoms that were informing that and may have conflated that. So getting more of that clarity was good too. Also forgot to mention during my population of interests, I'm very, very huge in working with LGBT populations, transgender populations, and a lot of those have intersectional identities with disability and things like that, which often makes them more vulnerable than other populations, ipso facto, more vulnerable to trauma. So getting more trauma informed was also my way of connecting more with my community and serving them as best that I could.
Awesome, thank you. And just a summary too. I think Andrea, excuse me, did a great job of talking about trainings and the expense. One of the things you want to look for as you're applying to jobs, you got to understand that not everything is apples to apples. You'll have positions that are offering more and paying, 10% more than in the other offers you have, but they may be independent contractor positions where you have to pay your taxes, you have to, get your own outside benefits. And depending on where you are in your life, that may be really important for you to have benefits. It may not be, so that's something to consider. Employed positions, with PTO and stuff, those are important. But what is really important is a qualified supervisor. Qualified supervision is expensive. It can range anywhere between $75 to $150 a week, and you need 100 hours of qualified supervision. So as you can calculate, it can get quite expensive. In trainings, a lot of companies will, require you to do your trainings on your own. And as you hear these providers talk, this is very difficult work. And if you're seeing patients, you're pretty busy through the week, the last thing you want to do is on the weekend is then, do a certain modality training. So what we do here at Elite DNA, what we think is really the ideal way to train is do it during your work week. And so whenever we have an internal training, whether that's EMDR or ART or all these other acronyms that we'll go through, we provide those trainings and we cover the cost for our employees. That way they can do those trainings without it being a financial burden. The other piece of it, we give them the time to take those courses. So if there's a course on Thursday and Friday, they just won't see clients that day. They'll focus on the course. Some trainings, we partner with outside trainers. Those could be on the weekend days, and we'll give them time as well to travel up if it's a travel one, or to take time on the Monday to get caught up, or not have to worry about losing their own personal time. So that's something you definitely want to consider when interviewing, is what access you're going to have to trainings, what this organization is going to do to help you from a cost standpoint, but more importantly, from a time standpoint. You don't want to take your own personal PTO that you should use to go on vacation or for sick time to be to do trainings, right? I have two more questions and then we'll open it for Q&A. I'd love to know from the team, what is the best and worst thing of being a therapist? I'll start with you, Nicholas.
I think the best thing, you don't always get to see those like big aha realization moments. That's kind of TV therapy. Once in a while, you'll get those. But what I find really rewarding is after working for several like months, maybe even after a year working with someone, we finally get to that place of understanding where they know themselves a little bit better. They have those incremental signs of progress over an extended period of time, and you can really highlight their journey to them, and they can kind of bask in their own strengths and overcoming those obstacles. Um, if I had to say what the worst part of it is, and this may sound strange, scheduling. Scheduling is the worst. I think they should give us a college class on scheduling in our graduate program because, oh my God, what a hassle. Especially working with kids, there's a lot of kids that go after those afternoon slots. So they fill up very quickly, and people can get very competitive. But honestly, I even reflected on that very early in the career too, and I'm like, honestly, if scheduling's like the most like terrible part of this profession, I can live with that. I can live with being frustrated a little bit with scheduling.
Thank you, Nick. Andrea?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the best part is just knowing that you're probably 90% of the time you're making a really positive impact in someone's life. And um, having those moments in the room with people, even if it's one of the worst days in their life, and knowing that there's someone there listening to them with unconditional positive regard, no judgment, fully supportive, like just seeing that impact in people, I think is the best. Um, I think for the kids, like all of us work with kids, and with them is also depending on their background, like finally being able to provide them with someone that they can trust and have a nurturing relationship with that can model appropriate behaviors and um, appropriate communication, whatever that looks like, because unfortunately, a lot of kids don't get that either. For me, as a Latina, also seeing people that are like, "Oh, finally someone I can speak Spanish to in a medical setting, like that has been huge as well. And knowing that we have like people all over the company, not only therapists that speak Spanish too, so they're able to provide those services. That's been amazing. The difficult things, I think as therapists, we think about issues that most people don't. Like we are hearing about, I guess probably most of the time, the darkest parts of life, and that can be draining. That can be really hard. We have to worry about social justice issues. We have to worry about minority groups that are being marginalized, and I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of great people outside of the therapy realm that worry about those things, but those things are affecting our clients directly. So we also have to be very mindful and staying informative. And a big piece of our field, social work, mental health, psychology, whatever that is advocacy. And that can be very difficult too. So I will say that in scheduling, I completely agree with Nick. I can spend 10 minutes of my session just trying to figure out a time that works for people, for the kids, for the people that have, I mean, 9 to 5s and they can't just leave work to go to therapy. So I also appreciate that Elite has like the extended scheduling. So there's 2 days a week that I work from 10 to 7 to be able to provide that flexibility for people that need it.
Thank you, Andrea. And then Deja,
Yeah, for
question to
sure.
you. Mhm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry. I think I
No,
missed.
no, no, I'm sorry. I was question to you. The best and worst thing about being a therapist.
I would definitely say the best thing is probably giving a voice to people because I was thinking about this as you guys are talking. But the whole reason I do the job is to provide a voice to people who do not or did not ever have a voice or ever felt like they had a voice. So I think that's the best part of the job for me, or the rewarding part of the job is that people get a voice and a safe space to speak their voice. So that's the best part for me. In terms of the worst part, I would honestly say, um, I don't know, it's hard. Therapy is hard. And a lot of times we have kind hearts and we're very empathetic, and sometimes it goes home with us. And that I think is the worst part for me because I love every patient that walks in. I love their life. I love their situations. I love who they are. And it becomes overwhelming at times and definitely mentally draining. So I would say that's the worst part, but it's also fulfilling if it makes sense. I think when you do it for a while, you get that that's the worst part, but the best part.
Awesome. Thank you. And then the last question, and we'll open it to Q&A. I see I have one question already. Feel free to put other questions in the chat. What is the one thing, Deja, that you wish you knew So when you're in your master's program, like the others on this panel here on this in this group here, who are in a master's program, who, what is the one thing you wish you knew before you actually graduated and became a therapist?
That everything is not textbook. So a lot of times we're in there like learning the books, learning the words, but when you're in the field, as my clients say, when you get in the field, it is a completely different world. And I wish I knew that I had to use my personal experiences, not in terms of like my trauma and all of those things, but just relatability, that you absolutely have to walk in with that and be able to adapt, because every session just looks totally different. Even though you may have a plan, and never have a plan is what I've learned in this realm of work, because they don't go as planned. Sessions never go as planned. And so just being open to adapting to your clients and their needs in the moment, is what I wish I knew.
Thank you. Andrea, same question to you. What you wish you knew?
Yeah, I think two things with that. Like, I totally agree with Deja. Like, we have to meet our clients where they are. If I really never go with a plan into sessions, because you never know what that person might be walking in with. So being flexible in that sense, and obviously always from a non-judgmental approach. And one of the things that I keep bringing my supervisor up, but she's just great. So I think that shows like the positive impact that she's done in my work. But one of the things that she told me recently is that I cannot do more work than the client. And that is so true. Like, we're facilitators. As long as we're using evidence-based techniques and approaches, we're doing ethical, we're having that unconditional positive regard, like, we're doing our jobs outside of what our clients do after the session's over, what they do in the 5 days until the next time that they come in the room. We do not have any control over that. And that's one of the things that I had to struggle with the most, that like I think grad school didn't emphasize as much, but I'll leave you with that. Like, you cannot do more work than the client.
Thank you. And Nick, what about you?
Sure. I guess on a kind of personal level, I would say be ready for this field to challenge your sense of self, both in a positive and a negative way. Transference and countertransference are very real things. I remember being in grad school and thinking that's not going to happen to me. And then I catch it in session. I go, oh, whoa, hang on. You remind me of someone, or I remind you of someone. That interpersonal piece, we're doing person-centered work here. And to say that it's never going to affect you it will eventually affect you in some way. Making sure that you have the resources to handle that, i.e., a good supervisor, good peer support, personal therapy if you need that. That's something that is very important in making sure that you both maintain your sense of self and discover it. I've learned a lot about myself through my work with clients. So that's kind of the positive side of like challenging your sense of self. Things that you thought you knew about and things that you maybe contextualize as like positive get challenged and you grow into a better person. It's not our client's job to make that happen, but it's one of those perks of the field where, as a person, as you move through and as you see other people and help them heal, you start to get a little bit more information about yourself, and both in positive and negative ways. Being able to handle that is super important.
Thank you so much, Nick. So we'll go to the questions now, Q&A. Feel free to put them into the chat. We have a question from A. Wheeler. Actually, two questions. One, which is interesting, you talk about imposter syndrome. That was something we hadn't heard here, but we hear a lot in interviews and just generally in the field. So we will talk about imposter syndrome in just a moment. But a question for the group when it comes to case management. Now, everybody here is either a marriage and family therapist or a mental health counselor. So we don't have social workers on this panel here, but we work with a lot of social workers. I think the question just generally is, how do you merge the aspects of therapy and case management? And I'll kick it to you, Nick, first.
Sure. So part of the reason that I chose to go licensed mental health counselor, or not, well, eventually, clinical mental health counseling instead of clinical social work is because I just really wasn't too into case management. So for that stuff, I really like to make sure that my clients are well taken care of. I believe to a certain extent, Elite does offer case management services in some regard. But if they need specialized care, specialized case management, then we really push wraparound services, supplemental services, other agencies if they feel like they need that. So I guess to answer that question, I don't do a lot of case management stuff. I'll occasionally find some resources for my client, like a local support group for parents of autism or something like that. But if they need something a little bit more than that, I usually try to connect them either with someone within our agency that can fulfill that need, or if there's no one in our agency that can do that, trying to find someone else out in the community that can supplement with wraparound services.
Anything, Deja or Andrea, that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I will say that I've figured out that for a lot of clients you do have to do some case management. So it doesn't mean that if you're their therapist, like you can't do some of those tasks. So like I'll give you one example. One of my clients, she was being neglected by her family, and this was a vulnerable adult. So of course it was a DCF investigation and everything, but I was able to get her resources for occupational, physical, and speech therapy that she was not receiving. And I got that thanks to actually going back to the free lunches that we get. Those providers are wonderful. So they come in, they bring us food, which is always amazing, but they always bring really good resources and informations that then I can facilitate to my clients. So I feel like I do a little bit of case management depending on each situation. But if I do have to refer to like more extensive services, then I've gotten familiar with what my area offers in that sense.
Thank you, Andrea. Deja, anything to add?
Yeah, same here. I've seen a lot of clients who currently, with the economy that we're in, struggle with lights, bills, those kind of things. And some of the times, session is mostly about the struggle there. And so, if session is focused around that, I will utilize some of the session to do research on my part and give them resources that are in the area. And it has been very helpful, and they have been very thankful. Do I utilize it all the time in terms of case management? No. But if the primary focus is around the resources that they need to kind of maintain, I definitely do that on my part.
Awesome. And then we'll go back to you, Deja, with this next question. And the question says, does imposter syndrome ever creep? I think that is the case for everybody, right? Imposter syndrome is there, it's real. And how do you process that?
For me, like I said, I've been in the field a while, so yes, it creeps up, but I think as Nick spoke to it, it's a lot of self-reflection. And in this job, you definitely need to know who you are when doing the job, because it creeps up very quickly if you don't. And if you don't do a lot of self-reflection. So I would definitely recommend in this field doing a lot of self-searching, self-reflection, making sure that you're in tune with yourself, because it can come at any point in time.
Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like we're humans working with humans, and we're gonna have our difficult days that maybe we don't feel as capable, depending on like whatever that person is coming in with or whatever is going on outside of our lives. But I think that piece of self-reflection, being compassionate with yourself, like we're all learning, like we're all just walking through life. And finding support too. Like I've been very lucky too to have amazing friends that are also colleagues. So staying in touch with them, and connecting in that level to like, hey, like how can I support you? Like how can you support me? I think that is also really helpful, that social support.
Awesome. And Nick?
Yeah, I think having that conversation with colleagues about imposter syndrome, there's not a single therapist that I've ever talked to that no matter how long they've been practicing, they can be practicing for 20 years. And after 20 years in the field, there's still times when they get imposter syndrome. It's part of the process. Sometimes sessions go sideways and we can't really predict it. And I know Deja works with teenagers, but teenage clients, resistant teens, oh my God, they will make you feel like you're not a very good therapist. So it's a couple of things. It's kind of being in line with your colleagues' train of thought in that this is a common experience for everyone. I also fall back on the modalities that I've learned. One of the main reasons that I learned these modalities is because they work for me. I use rational emotive behavior therapy to challenge whatever irrational beliefs I may have. I use forward-facing trauma therapy to ask myself what's going on in my body right now and how do I de-escalate those thoughts. Again, it's a lot of that reflection, mindfulness, bodyfulness, trying to understand why you're thinking the way you do, and also of the tools that I've already learned in my tool belts, how can I use that to get out of this train of thought? And if it's hard to do so, maybe that's a sign that there's some other tools out there. Or, like I said before, maybe a sign that we need our own personal therapy.
Thank you, Nick. What other questions does the group have? We have a couple minutes here. I'm happy to answer any other remaining questions. You can feel free to call it out. Okay, here's the next one for you, Nick. How do you stay present during your sessions?
It's tough. I've had moments where, because of things going on in my head or things going on outside of that session, I find my attention being drawn out. I've had it to where I've had the same clients talk about kind of the same problems over and over again, and I kind of start to drift off. Both, I try my best to clock it and redirect. In the latter case, if it's a client bringing up the same things and I notice I'm kind of spacing out, I try to self-reflect and ask, is there something going on for me in the room? If the answer is no, then I might bring it to their attention, even use some of that interpersonal process. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm having trouble kind of staying with the story. Have we talked about this before? Has this been something that's come up a lot of times? And then we kind of process further from there. In the moments where there's stuff going on in my own life and I kind of drift off, I'll disclose that to the patient. Not, I got stuff going on, but I might say something like, I'm so sorry. I really want to be present with you. I really want to be attentive. Could you please repeat the last thing you said? And usually they're very understanding and they go back through it. Again, it comes back to, grounding, those grounding skills. So if I notice that I've kind of zoned out and my posture is all wonky and I'm doing like this, and okay, I got to get back into formation, lock back in. Again, it comes back down to that kind of reflection piece and maybe even using that in the moment to inform what you need to work on, like, having more of those focus skills and things like that. But I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Nick. Nick, Andrea, what about for you? How do you stay present in your sessions?
Yeah, I feel like most of my clients are really interesting, so it's not hard to not be present. But when I do, of course, because we all have things that go on, and maybe I didn't get a good sleep, I'm feeling tired, whatever that is. As Nick said previously, like I use some of those same skills that I'm teaching people on myself. So, how do I stay grounded? Maybe using some techniques like progressive muscle relaxation that like no one will really notice that I'm using, but like it really helps me stay grounded. And self-reflection again. So, okay, what about this client maybe is making it more difficult to stay present? Um, and seeing if it becomes a pattern, right? But for the most part, I think that using like some skills, some redirection too, if the conversation is not being therapeutic, those are usually things that are really helpful to me.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Deja, how do you stay present in your sessions?
Yeah, similar things, grounding, those kind of things. Again, I work with teens, so it's not much downtime that I get in between them, of like being able to drift off because they say things that are very much off the wall. But as Andrea spoke to, a lot of grounding, I use a lot of curiosity to keep me interested, if I'm being honest. So if I am hearing, like Nick said, the repeated stories and stuff, I try and find a different angle to find curiosity, and it kind of helps me stay in tune. So that has helped.
Interesting, and I think I don't know if Andrea said it or Nick said it. Somebody said about being tired, not getting good sleep. One of the things I've heard and doing this as long as I've done from therapists is the best way you can be present in the session is the way that you sleep and the way that you eat. And the Andrea earlier talked about she goes to the gym before work, and just that routine. You have to compare it to a high performance of an athlete, right? LeBron James, all of these, fantastic world-class athletes, they don't just, show up and, eat a terrible meal beforehand. It's really how they bring themselves to practice, to the game, either sleep routine and all those things. And I think the best thing that I've heard given over and over from many different therapists is the way that you sleep, the way that you manage your stress and come to work, and the podcast you listen to on the way to work, or as what you're listening to prior to sitting at your desk if you're working from home. So those are the kind of things that really prepare you to be successful. I had a couple therapists, and everyone's different, say that they have to be really mindful of what they eat at lunch because they know that they have 3 or 4 sessions after lunch, and if they have a really heavy carb meal, it makes them tired, sitting down. So or the light that they get throughout the day and those kind of things. So just some helpful tips from that perspective as well. Deja, how do you handle resistance in clients?
Definitely meeting them where they are, if I'm being honest. As I said, I've dealt with community-based. I've been in a home, a lot of resistance. Teens, when they first come in, they don't want to talk. And so it's meeting them where they are. Very much so. If they want to go slow pace, we're going to go slow pace. If they want to, talk about the craziness, we're going to talk about the craziness. But definitely finding, I guess, their interests is a very big one in teens, figuring out what they're interested in. I found that to break the ice a lot. So I utilize that curiosity, their interests, and it helps with the resistance that clients first, I guess, display when they come to therapy.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, I agree. Staying curious. Sometimes, I mean, most of the time, I read the notes of my clients that are coming in, so from intakes or maybe previous sessions, and I've seen a couple that are like client left session early, did not want to engage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they are not want to stay in session. Like this is gonna be horrible, feeling anxious, and then they walk in the room, and yeah, there's a lot of resistance, but you find something that you share, and you're not going to start using those therapeutic approaches like right there. Like no, you're gonna build rapport first. And meeting them where they are too, of course. If it's a kid playing games with them, teaching them a new game if they're open to it. I've bonded with new clients that are resistant over or love for sharks. So we just color different coloring pages of sharks and different things like that. So staying curious, not judgmental, and finding what connection you can have with that person in a deeper level. And then you kind of trick them too. So it's like, okay, we're gonna play Uno, but let's play emotions Uno now. And then they start to open up too. So I think that's kind of fun to engage with clients that are a little bit resistant at first because it's so rewarding then to see the results.
Thank you, Andrea. And then Nick, same question for you. How do you handle resistance in clients?
Sure. I think it starts at the ground level with how we conceptualize a resistance. To me, resistance is always, in every case I've seen, is an instance in which someone does not feel safe in the room and does not feel safe with that person. And for a lot of folks, they may have never felt safe with anyone. And so understanding and respecting that first and foremost leaves you a lot of room to not get frustrated with them when they don't feel like opening up. The next thing is just meeting them where they're at, as Deja said, and then also knowing when to push and when to back off. I had a patient today. They have some legal issues, and they have been resistant every single session that we've been in. They refuse to talk about their symptoms. And then today we came in after 5 months of treatment, and he said, "Yeah, I have flashbacks and intrusive thoughts." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Do you want to talk about that today?" No. I'm like, "Okay, what are we going to do instead? Let's play Uno." Great. So I imagine in a future session, we're going to follow up and we're going to go a little bit deeper. But in a way, I think, sometimes patients test. They give you a little bit of information, see what you do with that information, and then kind of inform their opinion from there. Slowly you build the trust. Slowly you become that safe person. And then hopefully eventually get to a place where they are able to open up. Because once you have that, at least in my experience, when you have that resistant person and you finally get them to that place where they do trust you, that's where a lot of that transformative work takes place. And that's where they are able to feel safe again, and you're able to build more on that. So how we look at resistance really matters. And then knowing when to push and when to back off is really important.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Last question here. It's a two-part question. We don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to handle some of this and then kick it off to the panel. The question is specifically if you want to go to work in private practice, but you've been working in a residential facility, any tips or recommendations? The quick thing that I would say to that is, regardless of where your internship was, unless you had one where you were in multiple settings, which is very, very rare, there's going to be pros and cons to that internship. So working in a residential facility is great from an acuity standpoint. You've worked with really tough cases, and that's fantastic. The downside of that is sometimes you're not able to see as wide of a range of patients and populations. Obviously, if the residential was especially more niche. And the other piece of it is maybe the volume of patients you're seeing and the time you're seeing them. Sometimes in residential facilities, the patients aren't going anywhere, right? So it's not you don't have a set schedule per se where you're seeing this patient at this time for this amount of time, scheduling them to come back. And that's the same thing for an inpatient facility, right? When we see therapists in inpatient facilities, they're sense of organization or time management is a little bit different because they're not used to having to be on such a schedule, right? It's usually where they can grab people when the facility is needed. So I would say the tip, and then I'll quickly to the team if they feel anything different. I think the tip is just thinking about how you're going to manage your day and what is a reasonable caseload for you when you think about the amount of clients you'll see per day. Quickly, anything that the team wants to add? No? Okay. The second question is about applying and interviewing. So my suggestion for interviewing, generally speaking, is you should be looking about 90 days out from graduating. Start applying for positions and start preparing for looking to see what's out there. Hopefully you had a fantastic internship and you love your site and you have a good idea of where you want to work. Unfortunately, not everybody is as lucky in that regard. And so you want to make sure you give yourself at least 90 days to see what's out there. Maybe you were an inpatient and you loved it, but maybe you want to see what outpatients like. Whether it's now or down the line, and start looking as eclectic as possible. Ask your classmates where they're doing their internships, how their experiences and what they like and dislike about it. That will also be a good tell. It's also very helpful when they recommend you too. Hey, I have a peer of mine that is looking for a position. It usually goes a little bit further than just applying. And then from an interviewing standpoint, usually interviews, at least ours now, are done mostly virtual. I would just be mindful of what your background is. Sometimes you will have people they don't have a shaded background or anything, and sometimes you'll see a little glimpse into their life. And if you look and see like a really messy bedroom, the bed's not done, there's just mess everywhere. Not to say that it would exclude you from getting a position, but it's also distracting for the interviewer. And sometimes they're thinking, well, this person knew that they had an interview. Why is their room so messy? That's come up. We've had people interview with sunglasses on and wearing tank tops. I would just always tell you, dress for the part that you want to be. If you want to be a professional working in a private practice setting, you dress that way. Doesn't mean you need to be wearing a tuxedo, but it also means that you should be wearing something, I would say, generally speaking, smart casual. Something professional, something that really shows off your side. I always recommend following up with an email after the interview. Just thank everyone for their time. And I can't mention enough, research the company that you're interviewing for. Sometimes people just apply to 100 places. Somebody calls them back and then they'll go and jump in an interview. First off, you shouldn't waste your time if this is a place that you researched and didn't like. But second, it means a lot to the people that you're interviewing with that you actually cared about the company and their time. I put my personal information here, personal being my email address and my name. We are Elite DNA, as Andrea mentioned and the team mentioned earlier, we're hiring for all positions across the state. We're always looking for fantastic providers. I recommend if you're getting about 90 days out from graduating, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to see if we have a position here for you or if this organization is a great fit. Again, I've been here for a while, so maybe a little bit biased, but I do think it's one of the most fantastic places in behavioral health to work. So I do want to thank and I recommend that you copy my email address just because in a second when the Zoom ends, that will go away. I want to thank our panelists, Nick, Deja, Andrea. It was fantastic. Really appreciate your eclectic views here on different things and bringing everything. And I want a round of applause for that. And then Christina, thank you so much behind the scenes for making all this happen and organizing this. We probably would be still sitting in a waiting room waiting to start if you weren't here. So thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone's time. I'm going to be staying on for just a couple more minutes if people have any follow-up questions. But again, thank you everybody for joining, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right, thank you, everyone. It was nice getting to speak with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Nick. Have a